yours truly, Brevin Thompson, is back to talk about The Black Phone, which was directed by Scott Derrickson and tells the story of a teenage boy who gets abducted by a child murderer and gets locked in a soundproof basement. And in this basement, he gets calls from a disconnected phone and communicates with the killer's previous victims. I honestly did not know what to expect going into The Black Phone. All I knew that it was directed by Scott Derrickson and you had Ethan Hawke as the killer of the film. So naturally, I was intrigued to check out this film. And also, I really do like Scott Derrickson's work as a filmmaker. I really loved the first Doctor Strange film, which he directed. The Exorcism of Emily Rose, I thought was decent. So was Sinister, and he's a pretty good director. Although I was very mixed on the Day the Earth Stood Still remake, which starred Keanu Reeves. But outside of that, I do think that he's a good filmmaker. I do think that The Black Phone is a good film. But it does have some elements that will leave viewers divided. And I'll talk about that in a minute. So in terms of performances, Mason Thames as Finney, I thought was really good. What he goes through throughout the film, you really do root for this kid. His home life is shitty. He and his sister have an abusive alcoholic dad. And he gets bullied in school, even though he has a friend who stands up for him. And there was like one scene where his friend like pummels a bully to near death. I mean, to the point where he bloodies his knuckles. There's some really dark shit in this film. And when Finney is eventually abducted by the grabber, who is the killer of the film, he does everything that he possibly can to try to get out of this situation, and he gets advice, of course, from when he gets phone calls from the killer's previous victims, and he eventually realizes that he has to fight and stand up for himself, something he hasn't really been able to do throughout most of his life. And you really do root for this kid, and you want him to get free and escape this killer. And Finney's sister, Gwen, who is played by Madeleine McGraw, I hope I said her name right, she has an ability that she uses to try to find her brother, and without getting into spoilers, if you've seen the film, then you know what I'm talking about. But the standout performance in the film is, of course, Ethan Hawke as the grabber. And this is one scary motherfucker. I mean, the way Ethan Hawke portrays this character, I mean, they wanted to make this character unsettling as hell, and boy did they succeed. And I really like that throughout like most of the film he has his face covered. I mean, at first when he abducts Finney, I mean, he has like white makeup on his face, and throughout like most of the film he's wearing like these different masks of like kind of like that kind of like resembles the type of mood that he's in. But the scariest mask, in my opinion, was this devilish looking mask with this weird fucking looking smile. And if you've seen the film, or you've seen it in the trailers, then you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, they did a really good job of making this character very unsettling as hell. And this film plays up on the stranger danger aspect. When you have a killer who rides around in a black van posing as a magician in front of kids, that's certainly going to attract them, and given his opportunity, he'll grab them and lock them in his basement until he feels like he wants to kill them or not. And that is truly horrifying. And with a killer like the grabber, this feels like a guy who could pop up like anywhere nowadays, and that I think is truly fucking horrifying. I can understand some people not liking this film as much as most people will like this film. Even though I do like this film, there was like one scene in particular that I do have a major issue with. And it involved Gwen getting abused by her alcoholic asshole dad. That lasts for about like 2 or 3 minutes at the most. And this scene kept going on and on. I'm like, okay, I think I've seen enough. Can we go and get on with the rest of the movie? I know that sounds like a big nitpick, but I kind of have an issue with seeing children suffering, and especially being abused by their own parents. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of like unsettling. But I mean, the rest of the movie, I mean, as the film progresses even further, when you get more into the story of like Finney trying to escape the grabber, that's when the film begins to get more interesting. But outside of that, I do think The Black Phone is a pretty good film. It's not perfect at all by any means, but I definitely say that this is so far my favorite horror film of 2022, right next to Scream. So, yeah. Given that Scott Derrickson directed this film, and of course we know how great of a director Scott Derrickson is, great performances, especially when you have like two great child actors in this film, because normally child actors in horror films tend to be terrible, but there are like some cases where you would get good performances from child actors, and I'm really glad that they nailed it for this film. You have a great villain, great cinematography, a great score by Mark Corin. And when it comes to the score, it makes the film a little bit more unsettling, and I always appreciate a good horror score, but still, my favorite horror score is still John Carpenter's score from Halloween. But still, the score for The Black Phone is still pretty good. So overall, I'd say give The Black Phone a watch. I definitely recommend this, and I'm going to give The Black Phone an A. So what do y'all think of the film? Let me know in the comments below. And guys, thank you so much as always for watching. Looking forward to doing more videos really soon. And if you want my thoughts on old or new films, of course, you know where to find me.